Following the restriction list, the first thing I did was sit down and start fixing every deck that sees play in the Digimon card game. Some decks were affected more than others in this restriction. But one thing I began to notice was that since BT14, Blast Digivolution has become an integral component of the Digimon card game. And with restrictions, Blast Digivolution and more coming into the card game, what is arguably the best color at this time? Today's video is an essay-styled video that looks at every color in the card game, what elements of protection and removal they have, and ultimately, where the color is now in terms of playability. By the end of this video, whether you're a new player or you're someone who's been playing Digimon since the beginning of time, you'll have a better idea on what you should be building your deck around. For a long time, white has been deemed a color that is for overly powerful cards. In the earliest set of BT1 New Evolution or Special Booster 1.0 for English audiences, Omnimon was the first and only white card at the time. Omnimon would be mostly the deck to build in the early infancy of the game, and so you had not just one deck but two in the form of red or blue Omnimon always going at it. Red possessed a lot of aggro potential and removal, while blue gave you more consistency and ability to choke your opponent on memory. Needless to say, white would largely start expanding fairly quickly into Diaboromon and Millenniummon in the second set and more. For the most part, white would predominantly play a role in just Digimon specifically being level 6 or 7. That is until BT5. Battle of Omni would introduce some new tamers that would arguably be very powerful for their time in the form of Takumi Aiba and Nokia Shiromine. Takumi Aiba would be one of the precursors to countering Rookie Rush, while Nokia Shiromine would bring back some support for red and blue Omnimon decks due to their abilities to trigger on-play searching and reducing Digivolution costs. White would also bring about the first banned card in the form of Mega Digimon Fusion, which could in essence cheat your Digimon from level 6 to 7 for free as long as you had the color requirement and didn't mind losing the stack at the end of the turn by bottom decking the Digimon. As for removal, the only thing at the time option-wise was All Delete, but then you get later cards like X-Program who could do the job. Only downside, it did not affect Digimon with the X-antibody trait. Largely at this point, the talk of the town when it comes to removal is Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode Ace. Because of this single card, it eliminates the potential of other decks that want cards in the trash, whether it be Machine Dramon, Beelstarmon, or 7th Grade Demon Lords. While white had some really bomb removal cards, again, it isn't a standalone color that can stand on its own unless you're playing D-Reaper or Eosmon, for the most part. Which leads to the first real color discussion in the form of green cards. I've already made a video in regards to the fact that green always feels like the test color of the Digimon card game, where effects are typically experimented with here before they either finalize it in the form of a keyword or ship it to another color altogether. If you haven't checked that video out, I've linked it in the video's description as well. One problem I have with green is that largely, this color has limited or very weak removal. In many cases, green cards tend to only suspend Digimon, because the majority of their effects tend to capitalize off attacking over suspended Digimon for value. Memory gain, piercing, trashing security, you know, the works. But green ultimately falls into being one of the worst colors in my mind, for the fact that with the introduction of Digimon in BT14 Blast Digivolution, Ace Digimon really hurts sometimes. And while green lived for the longest time on plant, vegetation, and fairy Digimon, Digimon like Valkyriermon Ace completely hosed this strategy. While newer cards like Tyrant Kabuterimon offer some semblance of playing green, the problem here ultimately is that the removal elements of Tyrant are restrictive at the end of turn. Meaning if you wanted to go for security chip damage, giving your opponent that extra Blast Digivolution capability to the next level might tilt the game into their favor. But when you ask my opinion on what the second weakest color in the Digimon card game is, interestingly, I'd probably put red as the next color that is weakest in the Digimon card game. Now, hear me out on this one before you drop a long comment on this video or hit that dislike button. Red cards are powerful in that they typically buff DP, add extra security checks, or the general deletion of Digimon. And while old cards like Fireball were good for Floodgates and Gaia Force was able to generically delete any Digimon, the ultimate problem now is that there's so much immunity or ways to circumvent deletion that it becomes a problem. Even with BT14 and the introduction of Metal Greymon Ace, I can't help but feel that this Digimon deleting only an opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less felt really bad. Sure, at the time of release, it helped that most Ace Digimon were only level 5, and you could potentially target level 4s. But the downside is that in the current format, you always want to be wary of the level 5s themselves, which can typically have 7 or 8000 DP. While Wargroundmon Ace does only 3000 DP total, the fact is that you have Digimon built into the line that could potentially increase that DP threshold. Bottom line, even after Cartomagicka's in-person regional this past weekend, you can see that a lot of decks that made it into the top 16 have a lot of protection, whether it be Imperial Dramon, Dexdoragoramon, Armor Vaccine, and Magnamon X. There's only one card that stops floating like Crimson Blaze, but overall, Red at this point feels neglected and needs something to balance the scales of power when it comes to color. Purple is only marginally better in my mind because of the fact that it has so many ways to cycle cards through the deck. While its removal is conditional for the most part, admittedly I'm lumping purple as the third worst color at this point for the fact that it doesn't top consistently right now with Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode Ace roaming about. It just makes it harder. Though it is interesting that France's regional had a much more interesting breakdown than Canada's. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, while Eggman does not push too much Digimon content out these days, he does maintain an events page that is an excellent repository for deck lists that have topped in online, case events, regionals, and Ultimate Cups. Link in the description of this video, and do continue supporting him if you can. Back on topic, purple doesn't have the same problems as red or green, in which breaking is more likely because of the lack of cycling. But with 3 colors left, blue, yellow, and black, what is my opinion of the overall order? My overall impression of the third best color goes to black, and there's a few reasons behind this. Black typically focuses on defense, but one issue you may find with Digimon at times is the game is ever growing faster. It used to be very vanilla to play a Digimon and pass turn. But now you have tamers who can cheat out Digimon, gain memory, and more. Black doesn't necessarily have the speed, but it does offer a lot of keywords in the card game that make it powerful. D-Digivolve itself is arguably one of the best keywords in the game, because there are so few ways to avoid it. This alone can target Digimon that might have Partition, Armor Purge, and more by simply regressing that Digimon to a lower form. Collision is a newer keyword that forces your opponent's Digimon to block, meaning if you attack with a Digimon that has it, your opponent is forced to block with one of their Digimon whether they want to or not. And while Black has these 2 major keywords for their colors, Black is also the most popular color that has Tamer Hate, and typically deletes Digimon based on play costs. Forget about DP specifications, play cost is a game changer considering you could simply even use black cards like Gewalt Schwarmer to wipe a board of ace Digimon. In regards to protection, it typically has DP reduction prevention effects and bounce as well. The only problem for this color though, ultimately comes down to speed. But the second most powerful color in my mind for the Digimon card game at this time is yellow. Yellow got a lot of hits on the last restriction list, and really it's not about Magnamon X specifically, but more so because yellow is the color that can utilize a secondary resource in the form of their security. While purple decks can have access to another resource in the form of their trash. Again, you have so many ways to set up your security with yellow, which is why I placed it higher on the mark. Not to mention, DP reduction is probably the best type of removal in the card game for the fact that Digimon with protection effects will typically not be able to continue protecting as they will be deleted. An armored Digimon, for example, would simply purge 1 level, but then the DP reduction would continue with each purge. Coupled with the fact that yellow can gain insight on what's in the security, means that they can typically set the pace of the game by being as passive if they know their security is cracked, or put you on the clock if their security is weak. To no one's surprise though, can anyone say blue is not the best color in the Digimon card game? Comboed with the fact that blue cards tend to bounce Digimon, there aren't as many protection effects that prevent Digimon from being bounced except maybe Greymon and Omnimon cards. Blue cards also tend to be usually memory efficient and also have many effects to draw cards in order to find important combo pieces. And while true, earliest blue cards also had battle protection, the fact that jamming is much more prevalent just makes blue that damn good of a color. In the grand scheme of things, what was the purpose of this video? The answer itself is a call to action for Bandai to begin restructuring their colors to provide more outs and elevate others into a more competitive standing. The first call to action item in my mind would be to make more colors more anti-blast Digivolution in their own ways. The simplest form would be to tack on, if this effect didn't do anything, one of your opponent's Digimon cannot Digivolve for the turn. For example, take a green card effect that normally suspends a Digimon. If the effect didn't suspend a Digimon, one of your opponent's Digimon can't Digivolve for the turn. Likewise, red effects could also have something similar in that if this effect didn't delete a Digimon, one of your opponent's Digimon cannot Digivolve. But of course, this video is also a precursor to other ideas that I have in store. After doing a collaborative discussion with Team Deathslinger, his channel is also in the description below, I'm going to be doing some theory crafting, new keywords, and concepts that Bandai could potentially implement into the future of the card game. Overall though, what are you wishing Bandai did more of when it comes to balancing their colors? What desperately needs a revamp, and what is kind of on cruise for a bit for you? Let me know in the comments, as I touch base on another Cooking with Digimon video this week. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.